I think the budget is going to be one of our major problems. The legislature is going to meet in a few months in special session. They're going to have not only many demands, but some demands that they had not anticipated. For instance, they will have to face up to how to finance construction for elementary and secondary schools. And to the extent that funds are diverted into other areas, even unexpected ones, it will make it more difficult for the legislature to fund the areas that they had already funded for this session. We'll just have to wait and see what the legislature does, but I do expect the budget to be a problem.
Well, a private university has mounting costs like every business and every other school, and our income is limited by the fact that we can't continue always to solve all of our problems by raising tuition. So there's a real squeeze on the private institution, and some of them are feeling it very keenly. One of the interesting problems is the fact that we find across the country in private higher education that they've done more than their share in taking care of the disadvantaged students. This has been possible with tuition grants in their own budget, but many government programs, work-study programs, and government loans, state loans, and we also, of course, have those who can pay readily. But the middle-class student is being squeezed in this, and the young man or woman who has limited resources, but whose father has a good job, but where $500 or $600 makes a difference, will often opt to a public institution where the tuition is cheaper, even though they would like to stay in a private institution. So I think the squeeze is there, and it makes a very severe problem.
I can say that we have turned the corner and are no longer operating in a deficit situation, and we expect to maintain operation in the black from now on.
We have a particular problem to face in Texas in 1972 that could cause us to experience another holding year. And this is the court decision that just came out concerning the ad valorem tax base for public education. This will have some effect on higher education. No one can predict what that will be at this particular time. It could act in our favor, but we don't know whether this ad valorem tax base can be shifted to support of higher education. If it does, it would ensure a rather steady support for higher education, which is lacking now. We compete in the legislature with welfare and every other major legislative appropriation. We do not have a basic support base for higher education as the public schools have. Now this support for the public schools has been called into question and has been declared unconstitutional the way it is utilized. None of us know what will come out of this. Could have a beneficial effect for higher education, or we could be in for another holding year, or it could have an adverse effect and higher education could be hurt as public education may indeed be hurt.
No, I think we can say that there's no direct effects because we had our tuition increase in effect before the freeze. We had not planned for any raises, few if any raises, so we can't find or blame the controls. We're pulling strong for the program because if inflation can be slowed down or stopped, this will be a tremendous advantage, not only for the university, but for all of those who are on fixed income who work here. So we're hoping it works.
Of course, we had made our decision about 10 months before the president made his announcement about the freeze. We had declared a freeze last fall of 1970, because we had already determined that we were going further and further in the red, and we had to turn around. So we called meetings of faculty groups, staff groups, meeting of the finance committee of the board, the instruction committee of the board, and And we had determined last November, December, what our posture was going to be. And with agreement of members of the faculty and staff, we determined that there would be no further increases until we eliminated our debt.
We were caught in some of this. We did not give general raises this year simply because we didn't have the budget to give general raises. Some few individuals were granted increases because of increased responsibilities or some changes in their duties or their position. These have now been granted and were given retroactive to the beginning of the year. This was clarified with a ruling out of the Dallas office and so on. So we were not greatly affected by that anyway. My fear is that our building cost and some other things will continue to go up, and this of course will affect us because we have some building plans, and undoubtedly now these will continue to rise. At least it appears that way from some of the rulings that have come out, the increases that have been granted. That's where it'll hurt us. Since the second half of the budget was vetoed by the governor, we really won't know the answer to that until after the special session.
We were within the guidelines that have been approved for stage 2. We were affected by stage 1, of course, in that we couldn't give raises except to people that had promotions. But now that phase 1 is over, the raises have gone into effect and we are within the guidelines.
I would think that the student body would be predominantly progressive, and they would lean toward the liberal point. We have some students, however, who are conservative by nature, by philosophy, but the majority of them I would think that they don't have too much to conserve, and they're concerned about getting more of what America has to offer. I think that our students will be interested in voting, and we're certainly going to encourage them to participate.
I think there will be a little flurry of interest and excitement about such things as the sale of liquor by the drink, for instance. You can get students excited about this. But I think our concerned students have always been interested in the political affairs of the state and the nation, and they will continue to do this, even though they can vote now, and this will help. We know that some candidates are going to make a strong pitch for the so-called 18-year-old vote, and this will help. But I think students, by and large, will split up pretty much as the population has split up. We have plenty of young Republicans on this campus, and they're just as active as the young Democrats.
Since students are eligible to vote, we think that they should exercise their rights as citizens, that they should vote. And we're going to set up a table near the registration line to register all the students that wish to register. In fact, they'll be encouraged to register. Now, what no one seems to know, though, is how the student vote will split, either liberal or conservative or Democrat, Republican, or in any other manner. The student vote is about as hard to predict as any other part of the population. We have no track record on them, if you want to put it that way.
Yes, I think there's a very wholesome approach by the students who are now eligible to vote for the first time. The student leaders who were trying to get students activated to produce some sort of change. There was a helplessness on the part of the young people to feel they couldn't affect change in any regular system or establishment. They had to resort to revolution, they said. We do not hear any more about revolution. We hear a lot about registration, and we think students really are intent to participate in the